The movie begins with Candy, who works at a radio station called Nightmare Radio. She specializes in telling horror stories and strange tales. She always warns her listeners that if they're easily scared, they shouldn't listen to horror stories alone and should turn off the radio, because they won't be able to sleep after hearing the stories she tells. Candy always tells her stories while she's alone, so she can fully immerse herself in the same mood and atmosphere as her listeners. We learn that a man named Jack sent her a red lipstick. She really liked the color, and he was a big fan of her voice tone. Before starting her episode, she puts on the lipstick Jack sent her, and then begins telling a story about a woman who was living alone with her husband in an entire neighborhood. The houses all looked the same, but they were completely empty. The woman used to work as a photographer, but she could no longer work, while her husband still had a job. Even though his income was low, it was better than nothing. They were forced to live in that place because they had no other choice, as their income was extremely limited. The woman began to feel distressed because of the isolation and the fact that there was no one around them. One night, she woke up to a noise, and when she looked outside, she saw foxes searching for food in the garbage bags near her house. The next day, she went outside and started photographing them. She was happy because she had finally found something to occupy her time. She became very attached to the foxes, and they gradually became a part of her life. She got used to them and understood their lifestyle and how they lived. Even when her husband went to work, she would go out, photograph them, and sit with them. One day, her husband picked up the camera and discovered that all the photos on it were only pictures of foxes. He was surprised and asked her why all the photos were like that and what the secret was behind her extreme attachment to them. Suddenly, she got up and ran away. He noticed that she was running in an unnatural way. She disappeared for 4 days, and he searched for her everywhere without finding any trace of her. One day, the foxes returned again to look for food in the garbage. The husband went outside and saw a fox standing in front of him with eyes identical to his wife's. At that moment, he felt that it was her. This is where the story ends, and Candy asks her listeners, "Do you think this fox was his wife, or were these just hallucinations from the husband?" After finishing the story, Candy takes a short break, but she receives a phone call from someone who says, "I'm Jack. I saw that you put on the lipstick I sent you, and it looks really beautiful on you." Candy becomes extremely scared and feels like someone is watching her. However, she tries to calm herself down, saying it might just be a joke, then hangs up the phone and doesn't give it much attention. Candy continues with her stories and tells another one about a young man who was watching TV at home. He sees a masked man killing a girl on the screen. The disturbing part is that the place where the murder happens is right in front of his apartment door, and the strange man turns out to be his neighbor. The young man opens the door to check, but he finds nothing. Suddenly, the girl appears in front of him, and the masked man appears as well. The same scene he saw on the screen happens again, but this time right before his eyes, and the masked man kills the girl. However, the girl suddenly gets up and runs away. Then the masked man quickly attacks the young man. The young man manages to escape, gets into his apartment, and calls the police. After that, he sees another scene being shown, revealing that the masked man attacked and killed him as well. He then spends his entire life trying to solve this mystery. Candy asks, how did this happen? Was he living in a parallel world, or what exactly happened to him? She then ends the story there. Afterward, Jack calls her again and says, "I need to tell you a story." She lets him talk, and he says that once, he was in a bar and saw a very beautiful girl he liked. However, she took advantage of his admiration, drank a huge amount of alcohol, and ordered very expensive things, all on his tab. After that, he said that she mocked him in front of her friends, then left him and walked away. Candy responds by asking, "So you mean I'm the one who did this to you?" She starts apologizing to him, but he laughs sarcastically and says, "No, of course not. I could never accept your apology that easily. Now you're going to pay for everything you did." Then he ends the call. Candy continues the broadcast and starts telling more stories. She talks about a woman who used to appear in a hospital, and the story spread so widely that a film producer and his assistant decided to go see the place themselves. The producer wanted to make a horror movie based on the story. The assistant explains the details she had gathered, saying that the ghost belonged to a nurse from 100 years ago who had been locked in a room and kept repeating only one sentence. "I want my baby." The producer records everything on his phone. Later, the nurse breaks the glass and kills herself. As they walk through the hospital, they constantly feel like someone is behind them and hear strange sounds, but they don't pay much attention to it. They go to the delivery room, where the assistant tells him that the nurse's baby was killed immediately after birth because the child was deformed. She looks down at the floor and finds a photo of her grandfather, realizing that he was the doctor who killed the nurse's baby. She tells herself, "No, my grandfather could never have committed such a horrific crime." Suddenly, she hears the sound of a baby crying behind her. When they try to run, all the doors suddenly slam shut. A woman appears behind the producer and attacks him. The assistant starts screaming, asking, "What do you want from us?" and begs her to let them go. The woman comes up behind her and says, "I want my baby." At that moment, the assistant realizes she is the spirit they were looking for. The spirit begins chasing her, and she watches with her own eyes as it kills the producer. She runs until she reaches the place where the nurse had once been hidden, but the room suddenly locks itself. The ghost of the nurse appears and kills her. When Candy finishes the story, she receives a call from Jack, who says, "Your time is up. It's time for punishment." Candy immediately calls the police, but Jack has already arrived at the studio. He's holding a bottle of alcohol in one hand and an axe in the other. Candy runs and hides from him in the bathroom. Jack comes after her and says, "You won't be able to escape from me. You've spent your time telling people stories and scaring them. Now try being in their place. Stay in the bathroom, and I'll tell you a story so you can feel what people feel when they hear your stories." He then tells her a story about two female doctors who were traveling to another country to visit their mother. They stopped in front of a store to pick up a few things along the way. One of them went to check the store and found it closed. Suddenly, a car pulled up in front of her, and a man begged her to help him. But the other sister sensed that something was wrong and suspected a kidnapping. She looked inside the car and saw a woman bleeding heavily and asking for help. She immediately called the police and followed the car with her own vehicle until she rear-ended it, causing it to crash into a large tree. Everyone inside the car died. When she approached the wrecked car, she found a baby lying on her sister's lap. She then realized she had been wrong, and that her sister had gone with the man willingly after he found out she was a doctor, so she could help deliver his wife's baby. They all died because of her actions. She is consumed with regret over her terrible mistake and realizes that she was the reason everything happened, all because she rushed to judgment and misunderstood the situation. Jack says while standing outside the bathroom, "This is a true story. It actually happened, unlike the stories you tell. And this is exactly what you did to me. You judged me without knowing me, mocked me in front of your friends the day you met me, and you should have listened to me from the beginning." He then tells her to open the door or he'll break it. He starts smashing the door with the axe. Terrified, Candy opens the door immediately and lets him in. After some time, Candy comes out of the bathroom alone and continues the radio broadcast. The studio is covered in blood. She tells her listeners, "Today, I'm going to tell you a true story, one that happened in the bathroom." We then see that Candy has chopped Jack into pieces with the axe. She ends by saying, "You're listening to Nightmare Radio." And that's the end of the movie. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.